Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Dare to Teach conversation here, where we are working through a series of comments to define the integral teacher. We've worked already with honesty and forgiveness, and now we're going to pick up with the third of the first four, freedom. Let's talk a little bit about what it means to be free. Now, the assumption here is that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net. I've given the 2 introductory lectures, and then I've given lectures on honesty and forgiveness, and now we come to a conversation on freedom. And I hope that you've been working down that left-hand side with our playlist, Dare to Teach. And we've commented already that when I learn, and only when I learn to forgive, can I really learn to be free? It's interesting to me to have conversations with teachers who are about to hang it up. It's fascinating often, almost exclusively, not always, that they will often feel, they will express, that they feel trapped in the classroom in some way, right? They've got issues with students, they've got issues with administration, they've got issues with board members, community members, whatever it is, and they feel somehow limited, they feel somehow trapped. Now, of course, there are moments, I would argue, when the right choice is to actually leave the classroom. I'm not going to argue that it's not. However, I think most leave because they don't understand the concept of freedom, as I'm going to try to outline it here for you. I'll say to often future teachers, the whole reason, this will shock a lot of you, the whole reason we teach is because we long to be free. Now, I know that sounds awfully crazy, given all of the standards requirements, the tests, the assessments that we have to administer. But let's define what I mean by freedom, because I'm not saying that freedom is just doing or saying whatever you want in a classroom. Absolutely not. I mean, the truth of the matter is we all live in cages. The freedom is, of course, in recognizing the bars and recognizing the ways in which we can be free within the cage, because we're always going to, as the Bob Dylan song says, we're always going to serve somebody. I like to say it this way, though. You are only as free as you allow yourself to be. I am only as free as I allow myself to be. Because obviously we're going to be trapped in one of two places, right? Think about it this way. In our study of Robert Burns' To a Mouse, he does make this interesting observation that we can now share. When I talk with teachers, they will often live in one of two places almost all the time, especially as they're talking to me about their work in the classroom. The first is they're somehow trapped in that past. Something that they did, something that happened, something that was yesterday or 5,000 yesterdays ago. And that's where they keep going back to. It's fascinating for me to work with athletes who have this issue. It's funny, you talk with athletes, celebrated athletes, and you help them. And they will rarely talk about their successes. What they want to talk about is the moment they screwed it up. And as they're talking about that to me, I will often say, take me there. And they'll say, what? Take me there, I want to go there. And they'll take out their phone because often they'll have a video of the screw up. And I'm like, no. I want you to actually physically take me there now. I want to be there with you. I want to be there. I want to witness it. Well, you can't. Really, why not? Well, because it's done. It's over. That is right. And this is our first key insight. If we're going to appreciate this definition of freedom, it is you can never go back. And to that degree, your past isn't real. I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm not saying the athlete didn't screw up. I'm saying it's not real. I'm saying you can't go back there. You can't put your hands on it anymore. It's done. It's over. And yet, many of us as teachers live there. And we keep going back there again and again. Of course, the other place that we live is not in the past as much as it is in the future, right? It's always the future. It's always what's coming, what's coming, what's coming. When we were driving with my children when they were young, they would always ask, as all children do, are we there yet, Daddy? And I would always say, yep, we're there. Oh, we passed it. Yep, we're there. Oh, we passed it. That's this insight. Think about it. The thing about the future is, as I like to say to my students in room 303 as we're working through a poem like Burns' To a Mouse, the thing about the future is you never actually get there. Have you noticed this? You never actually get there. When we are on our countdown to flatline to die, 5, 4, 3, 2, the moment of our death will not be in the future. The moment of our death will not be in our future because there is no future. In some really profound way, the future is also not real. We're not saying it doesn't exist. We're saying it's not real. We're not saying that there isn't the last day of every school year. We know that it's coming. But when we finally get to that day, we will only be there in the moment. The challenge for us is to define freedom and somehow this ability to have this insight, right? The goal is to, of course, live with no shame of the past, no fear of the future. It doesn't mean that we don't admit our mistakes of the past. It doesn't mean that we don't have some anxiety about the future, but we can't let it somehow paralyze us. Shame, of course, can paralyze me in the classroom and all my past mistakes. Fear, of course, can paralyze me in the classroom, and I no longer take any risks. That is to say, I tried it. I tried to work with an at-risk student, as if all of our students aren't at risk, and it didn't work. I'm never going there again. No. Because as the heart starts to close, we can no longer be free. Think about that. Or, and this is one of my favorites, and it is a challenge that I give to young teachers. There's a few passages that I say to young teachers, you should just have these passages memorized, and you should recite them every day to yourself. And one of them is Thoreau's classic passage. Now, from Walden, we've given full lectures on Walden at LearnStrong.net, but to me, one of the most precious passages in all of literature is what Thoreau wrote to himself. And it's before the lines, I went to the woods because I wish to live deliberately. We're going to get to deliberate intentionality later on. I think it's an important idea for one of our 12 core values. But I love the lines right before. We must learn to reawaken and to keep ourselves awake, not by mechanical aids, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn that does not forsake us in our soundest sleep. And then he goes on to say, I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of a person to elevate their life by a conscious endeavor. Think about that powerful. I mean, it's such a powerful line. First of all, the word picture is, as teachers, we have a tendency to snooze off, to go to sleep. So we have to find ways to reawaken. But it isn't enough to just to reawaken. I mean, we've had these mountaintop moment insight epiphanies before as teachers, but then we have this tendency to slide back into the old doldrums again. Intellectually, we must learn to reawaken and to keep ourselves awake. Notice, not by mechanical aids, right? We can't do it with some kind of gimmick, which is why I'll argue in these set of talks. There's no gimmick here. There's no simple way to find the teacher's life, the integral teacher's life, through doing these simple little steps. No. But by an infinite expectation of the dawn that will not forsake us in our soundest sleep. Teaching should be that for us. Infinite expectation of the dawn. Hope is born in this moment, in this recognition. And then he says that I know of no more encouraging fact, he calls it a fact, than the unquestionable ability, he calls it unquestionable, of a person to elevate their life by a conscious endeavor. And of course for us, this is the real question. Can teaching be for us the conscious endeavor? I've called this the Thoreau challenge. And I've often said to young teachers, take the Thoreau challenge. For 10 straight days in a row, after you've memorized this passage, live with it. Say it as the first thing in the morning when you wake up. This is my goal. My teaching is my conscious endeavor. That I'm going to try to reawaken and keep myself awake. Of course, the language today, and we can borrow here from the work of the great Sam Harris. I definitely recommend his Waking Up app or Jack Kornfield's classic work out of Spirit Rock. This idea of mindfulness. Can we bring that kind of training into our life that will allow us to finally gain some freedom? Now, I will define freedom. Now, we've been talking about freedom. I'm going to give you a definition. This is my working definition of freedom. Notice I say working because I'm a fallibilist. I'm always ready for somebody to challenge me and say, that doesn't make sense on this count. But until somebody can give me that argument, I like this for a definition of freedom, to comprehend eternity in each moment. That to me is freedom. The goal, therefore, is to teach here, now, in this present moment. I think it's the only way to be free. Think about the last few seconds as we've been talking about this. Where have you been? Where has your mind been? Where has your spirit been as we've been talking about this? For some of us, the moment I started talking about challenges of the past, that's exactly where we went. For some of us, the moment I talked about the future, that's exactly where we went. Notice how difficult it is as an instructor to be here, to be now in the classroom. And yet, if you've done it at all, which is why we keep doing it, if it's happened for you at all, that precious moment, can we call them precious? They are. That precious moment, when there's something that happens in the classroom and the energy is right, and there is no past, and there is no future, there is just now. I've been able to enjoy that moment a number of times in 303. I remember a moment when I was lecturing Plato's cave allegory from Republic 7. And the bell did ring, and no one moved. It was as if time had been suspended, and there we were together having that conversation. That's a precious moment of freedom for me. Now, of course, all of us have had the opposite. The days when time drags on and everybody's looking at their timepieces to try to figure out how much longer this is going to take. However, right? And this is what I would call the teacher's Scooby snack. This is what we live for. We have a saying in room 303, Scooby snacks are an illusion. But, having said that, we know that one of the reasons we teach are for those moments when Vygotsky calls it, we are in that zone of proximal development and even moving out beyond it. And we're able to recognize this is precious. And I am free in this moment to truly enjoy learning as it's taking place. I like to think about the great Wordsworth and his little poem, Tintern Abbey. Lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey. And of course, I would challenge all of us as instructors to someday take the journey to go and visit Tintern Abbey. And while you're there, to read that classic poem, you'll remember that he says, what is it that makes a great life? And we in 303 call this the Tintern Challenge, and I'm going to challenge you to play the same game. The Tintern Challenge. What is it that he says of great lives? Little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. Think about the challenge of that. As I say to my students, and now I'll challenge you, let me play Virgil to your Dante Pilgrim. In the last 24 hours, can you identify a little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness and love that was done for you? Now, it's going to not be a big one, right? Lives are not constructed, great teachers' lives are not constructed around great events, but rather daily, little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. And our first question is, can I witness one of those from yesterday? Can I literally write it down right now? This is something someone said that was so seemingly insignificant. And yet now that I think about it, I go, whoa, 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 that was important. A meal maybe somebody made for me? A comment maybe somebody made? Well, I always am talking to my students about the hard work of people like our janitors in our school that keep our school looking so immaculate. And did I recognize it? Did I even say thank you at all? What would it be like if I could just look every day for one little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness and love that's done to me, for me, and to recognize it, to say thank you? We're going to finish our series with talking about gratitude. Of course, the second one's such an important part of our 10-turn challenge. In the last 24 hours, did I commit a little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness or love? Now, if I did something but I expected somebody to pay attention to it, to congratulate me for it, to pay me for it, no, we totally missed the 10-turn challenge. This is something that we do, and we do not expect anyone to recognize it as important. And yet, our lives are constructed around these types of events, these little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love that we commit ourselves. Can we wake up in the morning and say, this is the 10-turn challenge. I challenge my students, and now I'm challenging you as teachers. For 10 straight days, first thing I think in the morning is, today I'm going to witness a little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness and love that's done for me, to me, and I'm going to pay attention to it. And I will not go to sleep tonight before I've done a little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness and love, and I will not expect anyone to pay any attention to it or to say thank you at all for it. If they do, that's fine. But that's not why I'm doing it. Can I do that? Whoa, what a challenge. Well, he says it in that poem. We can see into the life of things the power of harmony and obviously the joy. And therefore, he says, I dare to hope, though changed no doubt from what I was when first I came among these hills. That dare to hope line is why I call this set of talks Dare to Teach. We will never be free, and we will never have faith in ourselves and our students until we can live and we can teach in this present moment. The only way to reach an at-risk student, and they're all at-risk students, can we say that out loud? Is to enter the classroom every day and see each one of our students again as brand new student, right? Give them the chance, the benefit of the doubt all over again. All the old bad energy is gone. That, of course, we call forgiveness. And we're going to come back to talk about energy because that's central to our discussion of what it means to be a teacher. Then, and only then, can I be free. Free to enjoy my work in the classroom, and then and only then can I evolve, can I reawaken. right? This conscious endeavor, as we've said it, right? Can I be so mindful, so present, that I can see my work right here, right now, not anything else, right? If I can ever get there, then and only then can I ever really experience love or compassion, which we'll turn to in our next conversation. Teachers should, I think, all read Gibran's Prophet. Do you remember this one on giving? All you have shall someday be given. Therefore give now, that the season of giving may be yours and not your inheritors. You often say, I would give, but only to the deserving. The trees in your orchards say not so, nor the flocks in your pasture. They give that they may live, for to withhold is to perish. For to withhold is to perish. Whew. What a beautiful concept. Can I find freedom through now to my big five, my epistemological positions, right? That is to say, I could be wrong. And I got to always embrace that idea. Can I always be learning? Always challenging myself. Can I find freedom through my ontological view, right? That is to say, accepting the limitations that are a part of body, mind, spirit. Can I find freedom through the psychological letting go of fears and anxieties? It's a fair question. Do I need therapy? Do I need help? Do I need to sit down with other teachers in true PLC and really talk about what my challenges are? Teachers got to ask that question, especially if they're going to do this for very long. Can I find freedom through the sociological expressions that are a part of community, right? That is to say, freedom is not being without the bars in the cage. It is rather understanding that there's always going to be bars. There's always going to be limitations. How do I live with those? How do I deal with those, right? And finally, can I live and find freedom through my theodicy? Why must bad things happen? Well, they're either happening to you, where you're the victim and the universe is somehow doing all of this to you. Or, no, I am no victim. Freedom comes in the moment when I own my life as my life, my choices as my choices, and I help my students do the same. That's the only way I'm ever going to know freedom. So I'm going to dare you to be free. Allons is our word we started with from Song of the Open Road. Let's go. Let's try and be free. In our teachers' learning journals, let's challenge ourselves. What was a time that you felt that total freedom in a classroom and you knew it, and you knew it after the fact? You were like, that was amazing. Of course, we have to finish by asking, what was a time when you didn't feel that? And you look back and you obviously have regrets. I think we've got to write about that, though. It's important for us to see both sides, right? Because there are actually, as they say, and great economists always say, there's the three sides to the coin, right? There's the head, so there's the tail, and then there's the edge. We always want to be looking at the edge. We always want to be paying attention. What I learned from a time when I started to think of myself as stuck. It might very well be that right now you feel that as a teacher. I am so trapped. Body, mind, spirit, trapped. Students, maybe, trapped as well. Can I help find freedom? Because only then can I ever begin to experience this thing we call love. Thank you.